so take us on a journey then, because I mean, obviously we're here to talk about your career and talk about the sort of music side of things. Where did it all begin for you, Rick? I'm not talking about the normal story of Shed 7 as such, but for you as a person, how did you get to Shed 7? What was the story before that?
Well, probably when I was about 9 or 10, and I used to sing with a hairbrush in front of my mirror, pretending that I was on top of the pops. That's probably when it started.
Yeah, well, I started there as well.
So when I started big school, as you'd call it, when I was 11, that's when I met Paul Banks, the guitarist, and Tom Gladwin, the bass player. And we all shared a love of music, and the less charty kind of music, the more indie kind of things that were going on. So we were kind of in our own little bubble even back then, really, so to speak. We were the kind of the weirdos of the school year because we liked that weird music, and we had our hair done in a weird way, So we just kind of grew up together, and we were in school bands together. We were playing in pubs around York when we were like 14 or 15, and we used to get told off in school for putting up posters advertising it. Whatever the band name was at the time, we'd go around fly posting the school corridors saying we're playing at the Spotted Cow. And then the teacher said, "Come on, what are you doing advertising the fact you're playing in a pub and you're only 15? So we've kind of been doing it for an awful long time. I mean, Shed 7 basically, that was about 1990 when we kind of formed Shed 7 after we'd left school. And that was probably because we'd heard the Stone Roses' first album in 1989 and loved that so much that we kind of thought, right, if we're serious about this, we need to pull our socks up and start being more serious. So that was the kind of point where Shed 7 began in 1990.
Amazing. And so, I mean, once you're at that point, how did you get the first record deal, Rick? I mean, because, there's always a story behind that. I mean, actually getting the deal is always the biggest challenge for all the bands that are out there, or all the musicians that are out there, that they might have a good track, or they might have a few good tracks with a good band or whatever, but they find this mysterious record deal just almost impossible to get,
Yeah, well, I think there is, obviously you've got to have the talent, but I think there's a lot of being in the right place at the right time and a lot of stars aligning. There's an awful lot of luck involved as well. For us, the journey started. We'd done a demo of about 3 or 4 of our tracks at the time, and funnily enough, I think Dolphin was one of them, because Dolphin was one of the first songs we attempted to write as Shed 7. And flukes happen. We sold these demos probably at the little pub gigs that we were doing around York, and somebody bought one of them who didn't live in York and took it back to where he lived. And he just happened to be friendly with this journalist who lived in Coventry called Simon Lawler, who heard it by mistake, I think, because he was friends with the lad who bought it and really liked it. So he contacted us because there was a contact number on the demo cassette and said, would you be interested in me trying to help you out? So he kind of instigated that whole London music press kind of thing. And that got us a few gigs in London. And, we'd travel down from York in a transit van with drums on our laps and bomb down the M1, turn up at the Kentish Bull and Gate, or whatever they were called, these kind of small pubs in London, and play in front of 3 people and then drive home again. We did an awful lot of that. So we kind of put the legwork in. It didn't put, you know what I mean? My advice for any up and coming bands is just do the hard miles, and anything could happen. So eventually we got to the point where the word spread. I think we got into the NME as in the top 10 unsigned bands list that they did at that time. So, the names started getting out there. And then, I think the actual gig that got us signed was, I think there was about 6 or 7 people in the room, and one of them just happened to be the A&R man for Polydor Records. And we acted like we were U2. We didn't care that there's 7 people in the room. We just came out and acted like we were playing at Wembley.
Amazing. I mean, that takes a lot of courage and a lot of confidence as well, though. I mean, where does that come from, Rick? Because I mean, I booked you guys one time to come up and do a gig in Dundee, and I was amazed that it was I think there was maybe 1,000 people or whatever at that particular gig, and you came out and you just blew them away. I mean, it was just full of confidence, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, it's just a lot of bands struggle with the smaller crowds, but you guys just came out and boom, it was there.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is living on the seat of your pants. I love performing, but I also don't want it to be bad. So I think we just automatically try and put 100% into it to make sure it's not a bad gig. I mean, the worst possible scenario is people walk out going, well, that was shit, wasn't it? It's much better. Better if people leaving singing along to the songs as they're leaving the venue, we're very lucky that happens quite a lot. I mean, it's funny when we play in London now, it's almost become a thing where we always finish the gigs with Chasing Rainbows these days, and people are leaving the venue and the whole lot of them are just singing it, and then they get on the tube and they're still singing it. It's great. It's a lovely thing to hear.